FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
We talk about why companies don't create jobs, and I know those of you who were here last week heard a lot about that. And reading the New York Times, I know as many of you do, and I was reading the New York Times yesterday, there's two different views of the world. One view of the world is the New York Times view, frankly, is that we don't have jobs because the rich people don't pay enough taxes, because companies are greedy, and that's okay. People are greedy. Corporations are greedy. They have no personality or no soul, and you can go on and on in the New York Times view of the world. And we could solve all our problems by raising taxes on the rich, by spending more government money, and by insisting that companies hire people. I don't know how you do that. I know a lot of CEOs. I know CEOs of many major companies and many small companies. And the ones that I know that are red-blooded Americans, which are almost all of them, they desperately want to hire Americans. But put yourself in a CEO role. First of all, you have tax laws. The United States corporate tax rate is the highest in the world for developed countries, 35%. They make money overseas, as a lot of them do, even small companies, because they export. If they pay a tax overseas, if they bring it back to the United States, they have to pay another tax on it to get to 35%. So they leave it overseas. They invest it overseas, they buy companies overseas, they build factories overseas, they hire overseas people, because those overseas people, they can't get into the United States. Whether it's Microsoft or Google or anyone else, they have to go overseas because they can't import the people they want, the best and the brightest in the world. Then what we have in the United States more than any other country is lawyers. I would like to export our lawyers and exchange them for oil. But if you're a company in the United States and you hire someone, everyone you hire, frankly, is a risk. And it sounds very harsh, but if you hire anyone who's not a white male under 40, you are facing a litigation risk in the United States if that person doesn't work out and they have to move on. So we protect people, and it's discouraging, frankly, of hiring workers, and we have a lot of benefits that you must have. We're not yet like Europe, but we could be. So we face some challenges for employers here as well. There's a lot of additional costs and rules and regulations. And the other thing we have, and I know that this is probably more a Democratic audience than a Republican, is that we have a president of the United States who, for the first time in my lifetime, has been divisive and anti-business in his tone. Everything is about corporate greed. Everything is about anti-business. We don't know what the tax rates will be. So companies, frankly, are very concerned because it's not that any future should be guaranteed, but I think a business is entitled to, one, know what the laws are and be able to follow them, and two, have some certainty and predictability with taxes. Not saying we should get rid of taxes or cut them or do anything, but the fact that companies have to know what they can do. And the other thing, which is frankly very discouraging, which is the biggest shock, I think, to Americans, is that we are no longer the high-growth country in the world. Not being the high-growth country, that means all the attention goes elsewhere. You want to put your money where the growth is, and that's what companies naturally do, because that's what matters. The United States growth rate, by the way, which we have benefited from and allowed us to cover a lot of our sins in terms of our budget deficit and things like that for so many years in our pension obligations, was rocking along at 3 to 4% for basically 50 years or so. You know, even the budget deal that was cut 2 weeks ago assumes that we're going to have 2.5% growth. It assumes that. But yet here we are, the first half of the year, we're under 1% growth. And frankly, I don't want to be the pessimist in the room, but I wouldn't expect a lot more growth than that in the next couple of years the way we're going. So we have unrealistic assumptions already. And it's very challenging in a very slow growth economy to be wanting to hire people when the action's elsewhere. And that affects all of us in that room. But so we have to do is try to get that growth rate up. And again, I would come back to innovation. And that's how I would focus on it.